television.
The administration media policy is very clear that they feel they can take all of the editorials against their policy in every newspaper in the country, and that those are just glancing blows, but they need to stay off of television. And they have done everything they possibly could, time and time again. They've made commitments to do TV interviews on national networks, and then reneged on the commitments, and then tried to bring people at as low down a position in the bureaucracy to be the on-camera spokespeople. This is a policy that dares not speak its name. This is a policy which cannot stand the light of public scrutiny. This is a policy which is a cancer on the body politic of America.
But what are the roots of current American policy in Cambodia? After Pol Pot had taken over in Cambodia in 1975, his army attacked Vietnam, killing thousands of villagers, as this rare film shows. In 1978, the Vietnamese overthrew the genocidal regime in Phnom Penh. Almost immediately, the United States began to give secret aid to Pol Pot. Washington was then courting the Chinese, who were Vietnam's ancient enemies and Pol Pot's main backers. The American aid to Pol Pot was critical in restoring the Khmer Rouge as a military force, now operating from Thailand. The extent of American support was revealed in this correspondence from congressional lawyer Jonathan Weiner. When this letter was circulated, the Reagan administration was furious. Then, without explaining why, the author repudiated the information, although it had come from the Congressional Research Service. However, the information in this second letter was, he told me, absolutely correct. It amounted to the same conclusion. Here was clear evidence that Pol Pot's secret backer was Washington. As a cover for its secret war against Cambodia, Washington set up the Kampuchea Emergency Group in Thailand. Known as KEG, it ensured that Western supplies were delivered to Khmer Rouge camps. In 1980, bowing to US pressure, the World Food Programme handed over $12 million worth of food to the Thai army to pass on to the Khmer Rouge. In November of that year, Dr. Ray Klein, a former deputy director of the CIA and close advisor to Ronald Reagan, made a secret visit to a Khmer Rouge base camp inside Cambodia. Within a year, 50 CIA agents were running America's Cambodia operation from Thailand. KEG was now known as the Working Group. Its job is to provide battle plans, war material, and satellite intelligence to the so-called non-communist resistance, most of it paid for by Washington. Today, American policy continues unchanged behind the front of United Nations involvement, which may well have the final effect of turning Cambodia into another Lebanon. Cambodia is the only country in the world to be denied United Nations development aid, and America, with China, has led this embargo. Without development aid, Cambodia will never, for example, have uncontaminated water, and children such as these will continue to die from preventable diseases.
Hang, it's exactly 1 year since we were here and walked down this corridor of these children, and nothing appears to have changed at all.
The patient exceed the capacity of this hospital, you know. That's why they still stay in the corridor.
See, this little child's exactly the same as a child lying there a year ago, who I doubt would have survived. Can you ask the mother what she's suffering from?
This child is suffering from diarrhea and fever.
Nothing has changed in 1 year. Here we have children who are suffering, and embargo means denying them the basic needs that could help these children recover so quickly. those who sit in the United Nations in great comfort ought to be confronted by scenes like this, to actually stand next to a child in such need.
What they did in United Nations, I think is really unfair, because they vote against Cambodia and let children die because of diarrhea.
Last year, the United States stopped a United Nations Development Aid mission from going to Cambodia. Pol Pot has described American policy as very correct. American officials have constantly denied that they give any aid to Pol Pot, but US Army weapons are reaching the Khmer Rouge via their allies, and we have evidence of direct American and British assistance to Pol Pot. From New Zealand, Sue Elliott, a senior official working with Cambodian refugees, talked to me on behalf of a former Cambodian guerrilla who, fearing for his life, must remain anonymous.
Sue, could you tell me a little about your source and also about yourself?
I work with refugees and have done so for some 12 years, and I have just returned from a study tour which took me to the United States, Britain and Thailand. The source is somebody I know and trust well, who told me this information because they want the world to know, and I myself want to hand it on for humanitarian reasons. Having worked with refugees for a long time, I find it hypocritical to be working in an area where governments at one hand are supporting the continuation of fighting and on the other are giving people refuge from it.
Could you tell me what your source told you as far as his training outside Cambodia was concerned? How did he get there and what happened when he got there?
His training was in Malaysia, and there was 1/3 of the group from the Sihanouk faction, 1/3 from the Khmer Rouge, and 1/3 from the KPNLF.
What was the nationality of the principal advisors at the camp?
They were American and British.
Can you tell me what he told you about the training itself? What were the particular military skills that were passed on to them by the British and American advisors?
The training consisted of military strategy, guerrilla warfare tactics, mine laying and weapon handling.
Mine laying was one of the particular skills they were taught, is that correct?
Yes.
Britain's involvement was vividly demonstrated in September last year during the Vietnamese withdrawal from Cambodia. In Phnom Penh were MPs Anne Cleward and Jim Lester as parliamentary observers. But there were two other mysterious British representatives.
I was introduced to them and I had some conversation with one of them initially and then the second one. And I asked them what they were doing there. So I was rather curious because clearly they weren't official delegates from the United Kingdom. And they told me that they were there on holiday.
But on the official list of observers, they are named as Anthony Norman and Christopher Mackenzie, representing Great Britain from the Ministry of Defence.
Now, when you got back to London, did you make inquiries about these two men?
Yes, because obviously I was very curious about them. So I went to the House of Commons Library and asked them to ring the Royal United Services Institute, which was apparently where these men worked, and is based in Whitehall, and make inquiries, first of all, to establish that they did work there, and secondly, to ask what their jobs were. And back came the answer, who wants to know? And then the House of Commons Library told me when they told people at the other end who wanted to know, the response was, the information is classified.
This is Mackenzie, whom we know to have been a member of Britain's highly secretive SAS. At the time of his visit to Cambodia, Mackenzie was a member of the SAS R Squadron, which officially doesn't exist, and therefore its activities can be officially denied. This is the other mysterious Briton, Captain Anthony de Norman, known by his friends as the Monster. De Norman has a long history in the SAS. At the end of last year, covering as a freelance photographer, De Norman returned to the Thai-Cambodian border. Members of our squadron often pass themselves off as photographers or tourists.
Time after time we've been told in the House of Commons that there is no military involvement inside Cambodia. Minister after minister has stood at the box and repeatedly given us those assurances. Indeed, Mr. Waldegrave himself, not long ago, repeated this assurance.
Concerned people in Britain have received a copy of a parliamentary statement by the Foreign Secretary Douglas Hurd. It read, "We have never given and will never give support of any kind to the Khmer Rouge." This was echoed in a letter from the Prime Minister to the Leader of the Opposition, but these statements were false. Foreign Office Minister Timothy Sainsbury later wrote that Britain does not give military aid in any form to the Cambodian factions, but